The doctor who became a multimillionaire by sewing monkey testicle slices into people. I wish I was joking. It's late enough that the room feels suspended outside of time. The lights are off, the curtains barely letting in the orange glow of the street lamp outside. I'm lying on my back with my phone hovering inches from my face, scrolling without intention, the way you do when you're supposed to be asleep, but your brain won't let go of the day yet. The screen shows the 1920s the way we like to remember it. Black and white photographs of men in tuxedos leaning against polished bars, women in shimmering dresses caught mid-laughter, crystal chandeliers, cigarette smoke curling into the air like a promise. The decade looks elegant, civilized, a world that knew how to dress well and pretend everything was under control. I swipe again. The mood shifts so subtly I almost miss it. The glamour gives way to something clinical. A scan book page loads slowly, the paper yellowed with age. There's a diagram, anatomical, precise, unsettling in its simplicity. I feel my thumb hesitate above the screen. Another swipe. A photograph of a man appears. He's standing stiffly in a white coat, dark hair neatly combed, eyes focused and unblinking. The caption beneath his face reads, Serge Voronov, surgeon. I frown. I don't recognize the name, but something about the image pulls at me. He doesn't look like a madman. He looks respectable, trusted, the kind of man people would listen to without question. I start reading. At first, it feels like a setup to a joke, aging, vitality, glands. I almost laugh, but the more I read, the more the humor drains away. My body shifts under the blanket as I sit up slightly, phone resting against my chest now, like I need distance from the words. I read slower. More carefully. There's a strange pressure building in my head, the sensation you get when something unbelievable refuses to let itself be dismissed. This wasn't fringe science. This wasn't whispered nonsense in dark alleys. This was mainstream, celebrated, funded. I glance around my room, half expecting the walls to feel different, like reality itself has tilted. The familiar comfort of my bed contrasts sharply with what I'm learning, and that contrast makes it worse. History isn't distant anymore. It's breathing down my neck. I whisper, barely audible, how does nobody talk about this? The answer, I realize, is already there on my screen. Some stories are easier to forget than admit we believe them. As I keep reading, my room slowly dissolves, replaced by a space I can almost step into. In my mind, I'm standing at the back of an early 1900s surgical theater, the kind with steep wooden benches and tall windows that let in too much daylight. The air smells faintly of antiseptic and old paper. Everything is clean, deliberate, controlled. At the center of it all is Voronov. He moves with the calm authority of someone who has never been questioned. His white coat is spotless, pressed, worn like a uniform of credibility. When he speaks, people lean in, not because he's loud, but because he doesn't need to be. His confidence fills the room before his voice does. I watch him gesture toward a chart, simple, almost elegant, lines and labels explaining decline, fatigue, the slow betrayal of the body over time. He talks about glands the way a mechanic talks about an engine. Practical, logical, fixable. I feel an uncomfortable tension rise in me. If I didn't know the ending, if I weren't reading this through a modern lens, I might believe him too. Around me, men in dark suits sit upright, hands folded, eyes fixed on him. These aren't desperate patients. They're powerful, influential, used to being obeyed, and yet here they are, listening like students, like believers. Voronov explains that animals retain a raw vitality humans lose. He speaks of youth as a resource, something transferable, something that can be restored with the right technique. His words land softly, but they don't need force. They land because they make sense in the way comforting lies always do. I imagine the moment he unveils the solution, not with drama, but with certainty, thin grafts, precise incisions, a procedure refined, repeatable, safe, scientific. My stomach tightens. I can almost hear the internal calculations happening in the room. Years regained, power extended, death delayed. No one asks if it should be done, only how soon. What unsettles me most isn't the idea itself. It's how neatly it fits into the mindset of the time, and ours. Progress at any cost, mastery over nature, the belief that intelligence alone grants permission. I realized then that Voronov didn't need to convince anyone. He simply gave shape to something they were already terrified of losing. The further I go, the more the story stops feeling historical and starts feeling cinematic. My imagination fills in the gaps effortlessly, like my brain has been waiting for permission. I see movement now, cars, doors, hands exchanging greetings, and I'm no longer reading. I'm watching. I picture Paris first, early morning fog clinging to narrow streets, the sound of engines idling outside a discreet private clinic. One by one, long black automobiles pull to the curb. Drivers step out and open doors with rehearsed precision. Men emerge dressed impeccably, coats tailored to hide age, posture stiff with something that isn't confidence so much as urgency. I stand invisibly among them, watching as they adjust cufflinks and straighten hats before entering. No one jokes, no one lingers. This isn't indulgence, it's maintenance, like servicing a machine that can't afford to fail. Inside, money moves quietly, no raised voices, no bargaining, just nods and signatures. Whatever the cost is, it's irrelevant. What matters is access. Time, the scale escalates quickly. Headlines blur past in my mind. Voronoff's name spreads from whispered recommendation to public fascination. Hotels in Paris aren't just booked, they're overtaken, entire floors cleared. Assistants, secretaries, doctors orbiting him like satellites. I imagine elevators opening onto marble hallways where servants rush back and forth, carrying files instead of luggage. Then the castle appears in my mind, almost absurd in its grandeur, stone walls, iron gates, wealth made architectural. Somewhere beyond the manicured grounds, cages line up in the shade. I hear the restless sounds before I see them, movement, chatter, life contained. The idea of the monkey farm unsettles me more than the surgeries. It feels like the final confirmation that this isn't a phase, it's an industry, an operation so large it has to feed itself. I imagine living nearby, a normal person, watching shipments arrive and wondering what kind of work requires this much secrecy. What explanation could possibly sound normal, and yet society accepts it? Celebrates it. This isn't hidden in shadows. It's endorsed by prestige and money and influence. The richest men on earth are lining up, and no one wants to be the one who doesn't. As I sit in my quiet bedroom, reading this decades later, one thought keeps echoing louder than the rest. When power believes something works, reality barely gets a vote. By the time I reach this part, disbelief has given way to something stranger, understanding. Not approval, not agreement, but recognition. I can see how it happens now, how something impossible becomes undeniable the moment enough powerful people say it out loud. In my mind, I step into a private recovery suite that looks more like a luxury lounge than a medical space. Thick carpets soften every footstep. Heavy curtains filter the sunlight into a warm, flattering glow. There are no harsh hospital smells here, just leather, tobacco, and expensive cologne. The men are relaxed. Reborn, according to themselves. I take a seat in the corner, unnoticed, watching as they lounge in silk robes, legs crossed, brandy glasses sweating onto polished tables. Cigars burn slowly between their fingers. Laughter fills the room, deep, confident, unrestrained. They talk about clarity first, how the fog lifted, how names come faster now, memories sharper, thoughts cleaner. One man taps his temple with a grin, insisting he feels 10 years younger in the head alone. Another boasts about his stamina, lowering his voice just enough to invite envy without appearing vulgar. The energy in the room is intoxicating. It feeds on itself. Every story reinforces the next. No one wants to be the outlier who admits they feel the same as before. The cost alone demands results. To doubt would be to confess weakness, or worse, foolishness. I know what the science says. I've already read it. Rejection, scar tissue, the body quietly sealing off what doesn't belong. Months later, nothing remains but evidence of intervention, no vitality transferred, no youth restored, but watching them, that truth feels irrelevant. They walk differently now, shoulders back, movements deliberate. The belief has already altered them. Confidence straightens spines, ego sharpens voices. Power, once reaffirmed, becomes its own medicine. I realize then that the procedure doesn't need to work biologically. It only needs to work socially. These men will leave this room and act as if they are renewed. Others will respond to that energy. Deals will be made. Decisions will carry more weight. Reality bends around conviction. As the laughter swells and glasses clink, I feel a chill crawl up my spine, not because of what was done to their bodies, but because of how easily belief can override truth when everyone in the room agrees to pretend. And for a moment, I understand why they call it a miracle. At some point, without noticing when, I've come back to myself. The imagined rooms fade, the distant voices dissolve, and I'm alone again in the quiet of my bedroom. My phone is still in my hand, the screen dimmed now, as if it's grown tired of revealing things. I stare at it for a moment before locking it. The sudden darkness feels heavier than it should. The room hasn't changed, but I have. There's a faint ringing in my ears, the mental equivalent of stepping outside after a loud concert. History doesn't feel settled anymore, it feels unfinished. My thoughts drift forward instead of back. I think about modern headlines I've skimmed without much reflection. Tech entrepreneurs chasing longevity, experimental diets, extreme routines, transfusions, injections. Different vocabulary, sleeker branding, cleaner labs, but the same promise underneath. More time, more control, less fear. I imagine a man in the 1920s sitting exactly where I am now, except in a leather chair instead of a bed. Brandy in hand, fire crackling nearby, he feels unstoppable. Important, certain, somewhere beneath his tailored suit is proof that he's done something radical to stay ahead of death. Even if no one will ever mention it in polite company, that image sticks with me. How many decisions, economic, political, historical, were shaped by men riding the high of belief, men convinced they were sharper, stronger, chosen, men who trusted the story more than the science because the story felt better. I glance around my room again, the posters, the charger cable snaking across the floor. The normality of it all feels fragile now, like it's propped up by assumptions we don't question until much later. What we call advanced, today will eventually age into embarrassment. Someone, a century from now, will scroll through archives and feel the same disbelief tightening in their chest. They'll wonder how we didn't see it. How we let fear dress itself up as progress and call it innovation. I lie back and stare at the ceiling, the darkness above me suddenly vast. The past isn't laughing at us, it's waiting. And the thought that lingers, quiet but relentless, is this: the line between wisdom and absurdity is only visible in hindsight, and we're always standing on the wrong side of it.